Mm.
Perfect. I mean, definitely. I mean, the biggest problem is that even with World Health Organization, instead of supporting World
Yes.
Health Organization, everyone started blaming. With US, this is now started by discussing about let's reshuffle and let's change it. But I mean, like in the most difficult moment, how you're going to change it? People are already
Yes.
you have to spend more time on funding or supporting it instead of like, you know, grabbing it for bureaucracy system.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then whatever mistakes they have done should be corrected after this period in terms of, I mean, whatever review, because Australia is also asking for a review. And I just feel that if they want to do any review of any institution, it should be done after this situation has improved, you know, after this problem has gone away. Because in the middle of it, when they are all working, the last thing you want is to slow them down through a major investigation. So anyway, you are absolutely right, Rafshan.
And the most important thing, now we are going to face a poverty issue and a hunger issue, because head of executive director of World Food Program announced that 265 million people are going to starve with poverty of having food. How we are going to, because the world was like a little bit moving on to solve or to move in a better situation, but now we are going back again. And economical situation, even in big countries are struggling. I mean, many people are going to suffer. How we are going to face it?
Yes, I think that this is a very critical issue, because all the supply chains have been broken and all people can't move. The logistical systems have been affected. And what this pandemic is showing is really the inequalities in our society. And obviously the most vulnerable people are the ones who have been very badly affected. And especially those in a crisis situation, so that you have a crisis within a crisis. So what this has shown is that this pandemic has actually precipitated a health crisis into a human tragedy, especially if we don't deal with, of course, the hunger situation, but also the situation of joblessness and the situation of the fact that there are also a lot of homeless people and people who are living in very crowded situation. So the whole issue of social distancing is not really working for them. So these are the people who will be very badly affected. And I'm very, very concerned with the vulnerabilities that is all showing up. And we are not in a position, the multilateral institutions, the civil society, we are not in a position to address it on the type of scale. It's an unprecedented scale that we're facing in terms of this pandemic.
What's the problem in your thinking that what it should be done, that international organization or the government should be understanding that there is a need for the multilateralism and there is a need for solidarity? Because it looks like today everyone is like working for itself. Every country being isolated for their own home and doing for themselves, hiding everything for themselves.
Well, I think that what is critical is that, of course, local action and national action are absolutely necessary. But this is a global pandemic, and the response will have to be global, because we are so interconnected, and therefore the coordination among countries, as well as learning from some of the best practices, and showing, you know, where people have practices that can be replicated, and having solidarity of support. That if somebody needs something, we can respond. But obviously, it has to be somebody coordinating this. I don't see that type of global leadership emerging at this moment. We need to have a core group of global leaders I know our Secretary General from the United Nations have called for a global ceasefire. It is a bit unfortunate that the UN Security Council has not fully approved that, but that could have been a great help when it comes to providing support to some of the fragile countries. But that is not happening on a scale that we need to actually see. So I am, of course, very concerned that we have not been able to pull together on this type of a scale. But it is critical already to think in terms of how we are already thinking in our responses to the post-COVID-19 world. And it has to be a world that is based on greater economic, social, environmental, gender justice. Then only can we actually begin to build the foundation that will be strong enough to have a foundation of prevention as well as the capacity to a response. I think what will be very helpful is that if we look at the countries that have done well in terms of response and see how they have developed their social protection systems, how they have provided for their citizens, the care systems. These are all systems that make for functioning, vibrant societies. And these are the foundation that actually can see us through a pandemic in a much more effective way. And I think these are all lessons which we have to learn and share. And really try to help countries that are not there, but also communities, even within some of the richer countries, the poorer communities are not doing very well.
I mean, the good thing was, not the good thing, but the positive part was that it was like a wake-up call for everyone, showing that, it doesn't matter, you are a rich country, you are a poor country, you are a rich person or poor person. I mean, big size or small size, it will affect everyone. And honestly,
yes.
It was like amazing to see Singapore healthcare system and also German healthcare system, that it was like, despite of the numbers of the affected people, the death number is very low. But you are very right. Despite the Secretary General called for the ceasefire, like, we have like, Nagorno-Karabakh or Ukraine has its own problem, or in Syria, or in Yemen, or in Iraq, or in the crisis with the refugees in Rohingya, or in Malaysia, it still continues. I mean, we have to admit the Secretary General being more active, and he been having more social activities than any other Secretary Generals. But without having a power, he can't do anything. Because
But I think that this is where we should try and support him. In fact, to try to have an open letter to support that ceasefire, I think would be a very good way, especially since we have so many countries that were formerly conflict-affected countries. And I think that our voice would be very helpful, Roshan.
Okay, definitely. If you support, because I think that we did already with Gordon Brown on emergency.
On the G20, right? Yeah, on the G20.
Now we have one with Ismail Sregeldin on G20 and UN Security Council for the food security and emergency. And I think this one definitely should be about the open letter on ceasefire, because it's
exactly
important.
Yes, exactly. I think we should be able, this is a big, it's an opportunity for the world to come together to put away our differences, because the virus knows no difference in terms of politics, in terms of geographical boundaries, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of class, in terms of gender. It doesn't differentiate anything. So we, in our fight against this pandemic, should put away whatever have been the root causes of so many of our own internal conflicts as well as our external conflicts. And all the competition has also got to be put aside to be able to handle this as the largest threat to our human future.
And the last question, how do you think that with the pandemic and after pandemic, these international organizations are going to survive, or how they are going to adapt to the new system?
Well, I think that what is critical is to show that we cannot run away from the multilateral world, because if we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about global partnership, we're talking about global action, we need a multilateral system that is rule-based, that is also rooted in very core important values. I think the values that will drive the next phase, of that will shape, if you like, the post-COVID-19 world, will have to be the type of multilateral values that have actually supported us in our prosperity and our well-being, especially after the Second World War. I mean, this is really the time to go back and recognize the values that were put into the UN Charter after the Second World War, and to now not to give lip service. I think many of us, so many of our countries and our leaders, sorry to say that, have just been given lip service and have never taken any of these values seriously in terms of living them in their everyday life, in the way they run organizations. It is time to not just give lip service to values that are so critical to human well-being and the human future. We have to make these values a reality, and therefore, strengthening the multilateral system in that way, because there's no point our leaders going in saying good things in the international sphere and then doing some of the most horrible stuff when they get back to their own countries. So I think if we want multilateralism to function, let's look at the type of leadership that we are providing and the type of support we're giving to our local organizations, to civil society, to the way we behave with each other. How do we respect the human dignity in each one, and stop trying to discriminate along lines of gender, of ethnicity, of status, and where you are a refugee, a migrant, or and marginalize people further and further. I think the age of marginalization have got to be questioned. This is the time for an age of solidarity.
Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Noeleen. It's so nice.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. Bye.